First story. I took away my stepdaughter's stuffed toy that her mum gave her as punishment for disrespecting me, saying I'm not her mum. Then shredded the toy by mistake. So I told my stepdaughter to grow up and move on. But she had a breakdown and left my house. Now everyone blames me. She's almost a teenager and doesn't need that toy anyway. I've been married to Eric 42M for about 2 years now. He has 3 kids, Liam 14M, Sophie 10F, and Jonah 8M. Their mum has been out of the picture for years, and I stepped in as a mother figure when I married their dad. I'm 36, and I don't have biological kids of my own. For the most part, things are okay. Liam and Jonah are easygoing, and while we've had the usual growing pains, I feel like we've built something steady. But Sophie, it's like every week she finds a new way to test me. She's not outwardly aggressive, but she's cold, passive-aggressive, cutting, and extremely resistant when it's just me giving instructions or setting boundaries. She doesn't behave like this with Eric, teachers, or her grandmother, Carol. It's specifically me. I get that I'm the stepmom. I'm not trying to replace anyone, and I've always tried to be consistent, supportive, and present. But lately, it feels like all of that is just hitting a wall. Sophie's therapist, she's been in therapy since before I came into the picture due to trauma around her mum. Leaving, says her acting out is normal and rooted in abandonment fears. I get that, I really do. But when a child disrespects every rule you make, undermines you in front of the other kids, and constantly treats you disrespectfully in your own home, it chips away at you. This has been building for months. Sophie will roll her eyes when I ask her to do chores. If I set a bedtime or try to help with homework, she'll give one-word answers or leave the room. A few weeks ago, I asked her to set the table for dinner, and she just flat out ignored me. When I reminded her again, she looked at me dead in the eye and said, "You're not my real mom. Why should I listen to you?" That one hurt. But the worst was last week. We were getting ready to leave for a family dinner at Eric's sister's house. Sophie was lying on the couch, playing with her favorite stuffed dog, this floppy, worn-down little thing her mum gave her years ago. She never parts with it. It's with her on the couch and at the dinner table. She even tries to sneak it into school. I told her to put on shoes and get moving, and she ignored me completely. When I raised my voice, she snapped back, "You're not my mum, and you'll never be," and stormed off. I lost it. I'm not proud, but that was a breaking point for me. I went into the laundry room and sobbed. I felt humiliated, disrespected, like everything I'd tried to build with her meant nothing. Eric found me afterwards, and to his credit, he comforted me. He admitted Sophie's been acting out more lately, and that he hasn't always backed me up the way he should. He said he was going to talk to her, but I said talking wasn't going to fix this anymore. There needed to be actual consequences. I was tired of being the emotional punching bag for a kid who refused to accept me no matter how much effort I put in. That's when we decided to take the stuffed dog away. We both knew it was going to hit her hard. It's the only thing she still has from her biological mom. Eric was hesitant, but agreed that maybe it would make her realize her actions have consequences. We framed it this way. She would get the toy back if she started respecting me, basic things like listening, speaking respectfully, and not undermining me. If nothing changed by the end of the month, then the toy would be permanently taken away. It sounds harsh, but honestly, I didn't feel bad about it. At least not initially. I needed to draw a line somewhere. She couldn't keep treating me like dirt and expect no response. I went into her room the next morning when she was at school and took the toy. When she got home and noticed it missing, she absolutely lost her mind. Screaming, crying, throwing things. I told her calmly that it wasn't gone forever, but she had to earn it back by treating me like a parent in this house. Not a babysitter. Not a stranger. She ran into her room and slammed the door. We didn't see her the rest of the night. The next day, I found out she had called Carol, her grandmother, Eric's mom. Carol showed up that evening, gave both me and Eric a piece of her mind, mostly me, and took Sophie to her house for a few days. According to Carol, what we did was cruel and manipulative. She said taking away a child's only comfort item, especially one tied to her absent mother, was crossing a line. When I tried to explain that we were just trying to get Sophie to respect some boundaries, she wasn't hearing it. She said, "This is exactly why she doesn't see you as a mother." A few days later, Sophie's therapist called. Apparently, Sophie had told her everything, and she wanted to speak with both of us. She was calm, but firm. She said the punishment we chose was emotionally harmful. That the toy represented safety and attachment, and taking it away could actually make Sophie less stable, not more compliant. Eric was there for that call. He nodded along, but didn't say much. Afterwards, he told me he still stood by me, but he's been distant, a little quieter, a little colder. It's like he supports me in theory, but doesn't want to deal with the fallout. The toy stayed in my purse for a few days. I figured it was safest there Sophie couldn't sneak it back if she came home early or tried to take it from our bedroom. I didn't think much of it. Then I went to visit my friend Michelle. We hadn't seen each other in a while, and she invited me over for coffee. She has this big goofy Labrador named Scout. I left my bag on the floor, and we sat down to chat. I completely forgot the toy was even in there until Scout started sniffing around my purse. Before I could react, Scout had grabbed the toy out with his teeth and bolted across the living room. I screamed and lunged after him, but it was too late. He was shaking the thing like it was a chew toy, and stuffing was already flying across the floor. By the time we got it out of his mouth, it was shredded. It looked like something you'd find in a garbage can. Unrecognizable. I just stood there holding the remains like an idiot, feeling sick to my stomach. I didn't say much to Michelle. She saw my face, asked what that was, and when I explained, she just said, "OSHT." We both tried to patch it up, but there wasn't anything to save. I shoved what was left of the toy into a bag, made some excuse, and left. I drove around for a while. I didn't want to go home. I knew what it meant. That toy was never coming back, and I couldn't blame anyone but myself. Eric was in the kitchen when I got home. I pulled out the destroyed toy and put it on the counter. He stared at it for a solid minute before saying anything. Then he just asked, "Why did you even take it with you?" I told him I didn't want Sophie sneaking it back. He said nothing, just nodded once and walked out of the room. He didn't yell, didn't accuse me. But the silence was worse. It said everything. Now I'm stuck with this knot in my stomach. I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to tell Sophie. She's still at Carol's house, and Eric hasn't pushed to bring her back yet. I think part of him is glad she's not here. The guilt is eating at me, but I don't know what to feel guilty for. I still believe taking the toy was the right move. She crossed a line, and there needed to be a real consequence. She doesn't respect me, hasn't from day one, and every time I've tried to be patient or understanding, I just get walked all over. I've been more lenient than I should have been, honestly. But I also know this looks bad. Carol already thought I was heartless for taking it away. Now what? That I let it get destroyed. That I wasn't responsible enough to keep it safe. I told Eric I wasn't trying to be cruel. I just didn't want to keep it in the house where she could sneak it back. He didn't argue, but I could tell he blamed me at least a little. Quietly. Like he agreed with the idea of the punishment, but not the execution. I asked him if I should try to replace it, maybe find a similar one online. He said, "That toy was her mum. You can't replace that." So now I have to face the fallout. She's going to come back eventually, and when she does, I'll have to explain to a 10-year-old that the last real connection she had to her mum is gone, because I didn't think twice about where I left my bag. I keep turning it over in my head. Should I have picked a different punishment? Should I have just grounded her? Taken the phone? Would that have gotten through to her any better? Probably not. She would have just called Carol again and painted me as the villain. She always does. Even the therapist doesn't back me up. She called me emotionally aggressive for how I handled the toy situation. I'm not sorry I stood up for myself. I'm not sorry I demanded respect. But I honestly don't know if the way I went about it was too much. I didn't think the toy would end up like this. That was never the plan. But now I'm holding the pieces of a decision I can't undo. I feel like whatever ground I had as a parent figure is gone now. Sophie hated me before. Now I think she'll never even try to like me again. Carol already thinks I'm unstable. The therapist is probably writing notes about attachment trauma. Eric is barely speaking to me, and I'm sitting here with a plastic bag full of stuffing and fabric, wondering if I just torched my family to prove a point. So Reddit, Ada. Comments. Comment 1. Jesus Christ. This isn't tough love. It's emotional terrorism dressed up as parenting. You didn't just take away a toy, you took away the only thing tethering that kid to her mother. You didn't discipline her. You punished her for grieving in a way you couldn't control. You say you wanted respect. Respect doesn't come from fear or humiliation. It comes from consistency and compassion. Two things you clearly lack. You wanted to feel like the real mom, but you went for dominance instead of understanding. That wasn't about Sophie learning a lesson, that was about you needing to feel in charge. The fact that the toy ended up shredded by a dog is almost poetic. You tried to weaponize a child's emotional comfort, and karma chewed it to pieces. I don't even feel bad saying that it's the perfect symbol of what you did. You've likely created a permanent rift between that girl and you, and honestly, you earned it. YTA. Monumentally. Comment 2. I've got kids. I get that step-parenting is brutal and thankless sometimes. But what you did was ego-driven. You didn't discipline her to teach her anything, you disciplined her because she hurt your feelings. That's what this whole post reads like. An adult who got her pride bruised by a 10-year-old and decided to pull rank. Kids say cruel SHT when they're angry, especially traumatized ones. You're not my mom wasn't about you, it was about her pain. You made it about your authority. The wild part? Eric backed you because he didn't want to deal with it. Now you both look like arseholes. He gets to quietly resent you while you take the full blame. The therapist, Grandma. Everyone's right, this wasn't discipline. It was emotional negligence. You punished a child's trauma response. You lost a stuffed animal. She lost trust. That's not equal fallout. You both need therapy, but not family therapy, not yet. You need individual sessions to figure out why a 10-year-old's rejection cuts this deep for you. Until then, stay out of her emotional space. YTA, and honestly, you shouldn't be making disciplinary decisions at all right now. Comment 3. Everyone in this story sucks, but you still take the crown. Eric's a coward who let you handle all the emotional labor, and you're power tripping because the only person below you in that house is a 10-year-old. Carol's meddling, but she's right about this one. Sophie's being a brat, but she's 10. The adults should know better. You and Eric didn't parent, you punished her like she's an employee who mouthed off at work. Earn back your privilege. What the hell kind of message is that? She's not your subordinate. She's a grieving kid trying to make sense of a stranger suddenly calling shots in her life. And keeping the toy in your purse? That's the most telling part. You didn't trust her, but deep down, I think you liked having that control, knowing the one thing she cared about was literally in your possession. Then it gets ripped apart, and now you're confused. This is what happens when you try to parent out of insecurity instead of love. You made it a power struggle, and you lost badly. Everyone sucks here, but if we're ranking, you're at the top of the list. Update. So, I guess I really underestimated how far this would go. I knew it was going to be tense. What I didn't expect was the total meltdown the second she saw what was left of the stuffed dog. I didn't even say anything, I just had it in a plastic bag on the kitchen counter because I didn't know where else to put it. The second she walked in and saw it, she froze, stared at it for maybe 2 seconds, and then just started screaming. Full body, hysterical, shrieking screams. She threw her backpack on the floor and started yelling, "You killed it, you killed her," and then tried to knock the bag off the counter. When I went to stop her, she slapped my hand away and ran straight to her room. Eric didn't even look at me. Just said, "I told you not to leave it out." Like this was my fault again. I'm supposed to read her mind now. It got worse from there. Carol, his mother, showed up 30 minutes later. I don't know who called her, maybe Sophie, maybe Eric, maybe the damn walls told her. She walked in and said, "I'm not leaving without her." Like I was some kind of monster keeping her hostage. Eric didn't argue. Didn't say a single word in my defense. Just said, "Maybe it's for the best." He let her take Sophie again. I stood in my own house while my stepdaughter got rescued from me like I was some abusive villain. Later that night, I tried to talk to Eric about it. I tried to explain again that I never meant for the toy to get destroyed. I kept it in my purse to keep it safe. I was trying to parent. Something he's been way too passive about since day one. He sat there on the couch, arms crossed, and asked me, "If this had been Jonah's favorite thing, would you have risked carrying it around in your bag like that?" I said, "That's not the point." And he said, "That's exactly the point." Then he got up and went to sleep in the guest room. He's still sleeping there. He won't say we're separating, but that's what it feels like. Every time I try to talk to him now, it's like I'm trying to win back a boss after screwing up a huge project. I'm so goddamn tired of being treated like the arsehole here. I've been playing mom to these kids for 2 years. I gave up my apartment. I changed careers to have more time for them. I go to parent-teacher nights, dentist appointments, and soccer practice. I cook their meals. I remember their allergies. I handled Jonah's lice last summer when everyone else refused to touch him. Their actual mom, she disappeared without a trace. No calls, no letters, no birthday cards. I stepped up. And all this SHT is happening over a stuffed animal. A goddamn piece of fabric. I even tried to fix it. I went online, found the exact same model from a collector site, and paid $200 for it. Bigger, fluffier, newer. I was ready to give it to Sophie to try and make some kind of peace. But when I told Carol, she laughed in my face, said, You really think a brand new toy replaces what her mother gave her? And then hung up. She's poisoning them against me. And now, to make things even worse, the school called. Apparently Sophie's been telling her teacher that I ripped up the toy in front of her and screamed that her mum was never coming back. Which never happened. I never yelled. I never even touched the toy after the dog destroyed it. But it doesn't matter. The school had to make a report. We're now waiting to see if a CPS case is going to be opened. Eric says he understands it's just protocol, but he won't look me in the eye. I'm getting backed into a corner I didn't build. I was trying to enforce discipline. I was trying to set boundaries. You know how many times I've heard therapists say kids need structure? That without boundaries they'll just flail. I was the only one willing to enforce that. And now I'm being treated like I burned the house down. Sophie is 10. In 2 years she'll be 12, and I guarantee you she won't even remember that damn stuffed dog. What teenager is still dragging around toys like that? She needs to grow out of it. Kids grieve, yes, but this kind of emotional collapse over a toy, that's not healthy. That's regression. No one else will say it out loud, but I will. Maybe she needs a new therapist, someone who doesn't just coddle her through every tantrum. And what about my grief? What about my feelings? What about the years of being second best, being told, you're not my mum, and being iced out of family decisions? What about the sacrifices I made, and am still making for a family that turns on me the second one thing goes wrong? I'm the only mother these kids have now. That's the truth, whether they like it or not. And I'm tired of apologizing for expecting to be treated like it. But I know how this looks. A toy got destroyed. A child cried. Now I'm being investigated, and my marriage is disintegrating because I had the audacity to expect respect. So I'll ask again, even though I know what kind of answers I'll get. Ada? Comments. Comment 1. Look, you're not a victim, you're a control freak who cracked when a traumatized 10-year-old didn't give you the praise you thought you earned. That's what this entire post reads like. You weren't enforcing rules. You were punishing her for not loving you enough. You could have taken a phone, grounded her, talked it out. But no, you went for the nuclear option. You took her dead mom's stuffed toy and turned it into a bargaining chip. Do you not understand how deranged that is? The worst part? You still don't get it. You're on here saying she needs to grow out of it, like grief works on your schedule. She's 10, not 17. Of course she's still attached. You can't erase her mum, no matter how hard you try. And now you're shocked your marriage is collapsing. Please. You stomped on a landmine and acted surprised when it exploded. YTA. Utterly. And if CPS does open a case, good. That kid needs distance from you. Comment 2. You really thought you were going to get respect by emotionally gutting a child and holding her memories hostage. I can't even believe you typed this out thinking people would be on your side. Let's talk about Eric. That man isn't neutral, he's done. He stopped sleeping next to you. He doesn't defend you. He's watching this marriage die in slow motion, and you're too wrapped up in your martyr complex to notice. He checked out the second he saw the toy's remains. You keep saying, I sacrificed so much. Okay? And that doesn't entitle you to unconditional love from kids who lost their mom. You chose this life. You chose to step in. You don't get a badge for doing what you signed up for. Here's the truth. Your family doesn't trust you anymore. And if you keep blaming everyone but yourself, you'll be left with no one. Except maybe your friend's dog. Comment 3. What blew me away is that even after everything, the screaming, the meltdown, the therapist warning, the CPS threat, you're still minimizing her pain like it's about a effing stuffed toy. You have no business around kids if you genuinely believe grief should have an expiration date. You're trying to parent a girl whose mother vanished, and you think, in 2 years she won't remember it. Are you that delusional? I'm in my 30s and still have a ratty teddy bear from my dad, who died when I was 9. You didn't want to be a mother. You wanted to be worshipped. And when that didn't happen, you weaponized the one thing she had left of her mum, then tried to replace it with a effing Amazon upgrade like that was going to fix anything. You're not a mother figure. You never will be. YTA. Permanently. Second story. I told my mum she failed as a parent, stealing my happiness for her boyfriend. And I'm not letting him steal my children's future after her abusive boyfriend claimed my 7-figure inheritance as his own. This is a throwaway account because some of my family has my main one. This is a very long post that I can't really condense into a TLDR. The people I will mention in this are my mum, Jen 50, my stepdad, Brian 56, my brother, Tom 23, and my sister, Ruth 26. For background, Jen and Brian have been together since I was 11. Well, I say that, but 11 is the age I became aware of their relationship, as she asked if we would be okay with him moving into the family home. Prior to this, she never mentioned dating anyone, and we had never spent any time with Brian. None of our other immediate relatives ever mentioned him to us, either. The day Jen asked us, Ruth was sat next to me and asked to be excused to her bedroom. Tom was not home to have an input. I was stuck by myself with Jen, who did not seem to understand how she completely blindsided us. She had no interest in answering my question about why she had not told us. Her only interest was knowing if we accepted this stranger moving in. Brian moved in the following week. After Brian moved in, there were several times where both he and Jen threatened to move away without me, Tom and Ruth. They would say, "If you don't like it, they will get a new house and start over." This threat could be in relation to something like Brian telling me I shouldn't be anywhere in the house except for my bedroom and me standing up for myself. I used to get called stupid by Brian a lot. If I did something he didn't like, such as finish my homework before going to dinner, he would say, "Only someone this stupid wouldn't think to eat first." Any grievance I had with Brian was never acknowledged by Jen. If I raised an issue with her, she would deflect and change the subject. Brian would cause a lot of problems, knowing that there were no consequences for him. Brian never concealed the fact that he wanted Jen and only Jen. We were her baggage that he only had to put up with for so many more years. Tom, Ruth, and I were no longer taken on family holidays. The last one we got to go on was when I was my godmother's bridesmaid, and she had a destination wedding. I was 10. Jen and Brian would go on 3 holidays a year without us. Living under that roof was the loneliest I had ever felt. The second I came of age, I bought my first apartment and moved on. No more Brian, no more Jen. Tom and Ruth wanted to come with me, but Jen wouldn't allow it, and honestly, I don't know how I was to fight for them. I was working long shifts, sometimes nights. Though Ruth was a year younger than me, Tom was not. I doubt a court would appoint a fresh 18-year-old as their guardian with Jen in the picture. One thing I did leave in Jen's care was my valuable book collection. I won't disclose exactly how much it is worth, but it is in the 7-figure range. Some of these books were my inheritance. I was always told that they are to be looked after, never to be played with, and have to be stored correctly. I couldn't do that in my apartment, so Jen continued to keep them for me. I had no reason to distrust her with them. Earlier today, I called Tom as I was traveling home from seeing a friend. Tom mentioned that he had gone to Jen's house to collect some things. Because he was there, I asked Tom to find out if Jen had managed to get the remainder of my books authenticated. She and I had spoken about doing so a few weeks prior. Tom asked Brian about my books, and then Brian laughed and said, "What books? My books?" Tom said. "No, her books that you have been looking after." Brian then repeated, "My books." I was listening to this through Tom's headphones, so I told him to get Brian to clarify. Tom asked Brian what he meant by his books. Brian said, "They're ours now. We bought them." My heart sank the moment I heard him say that. Jen was not home. I tried calling her, no answer. Eventually she called me back a couple of hours later, but not before Brian called me a pathetic liar, and also spoke ill of Ruth and made claim to her books, which she had in fact sold years ago, still insisting mine were also his property. To confirm, I never sold anyone a single book. They did not buy me any books. All the books in my collection are to be sold at a future date or passed down to my children. Brian and Jen never gave me a single penny, so I can confirm this is not the case. Jen was unwilling to confront him about it. I am not allowing them to steal part of my children's inheritance. Jen agreed that she never bought my books, but Brian refuses to give them back to me. I told Jen that her inadequacy as a parent, failure to reprimand Brian over the years, and her lack of love for her own children have meant this moment was a long time coming. I said something along the lines of, "You neglected me. You allowed him to take my happiness away for years. You let him walk all over me. I will not let you steal from my children. If this is how it has to be, I will take you to the cleaners. I will report you both for theft. I will sue you for everything I can, and I will cut you out of my life again. You mean nothing to me. I am not in need of legal advice on this. I have a lawyer. I just want to know if I was out of line for what I said to Jen. I was very emotional at the time. Thank you if you read all of this. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I don't think you were out of line, they were sucky parents. You told the truth. I have to ask though, is it documented that the books were left directly to you? Do you have a copy? OP, I do. I have payment receipts for the authentications, as I have to send them abroad to get them done. I keep a spreadsheet so I can update it. Everything has been paid for by me, and I can prove my ownership. I also have messages from Jen where we discuss my collection, including the number of books, their names, value, etc. Commenter 2. I would take the documents to the police station and ask them to provide an escort while you get your property back from your previous home. Don't give any warning that you are going to do this. OP. You're actually required to give notice about collecting property because it is called a breach of peace, and access has to be given by those living at the property. In the case of this being theft, they could retrieve it for me with a warrant, but then it would probably become evidence. Civil versus criminal. Commenter 3. Do you have a list of every single book? Are they first editions? I hope you get them back. OP. I keep a spreadsheet that I regularly update with all their details, identification numbers, value, location, etc. Some are first editions, and some are valuable and rare comics. It is a mix of a collection. Commenter 4. Some of them will be missing if you don't move them. How about renting a temperature-controlled storage unit and moving them permanently? Seriously, don't trust him or your flaky mom. OP. I bought a house and had storage made to specific requirements so that I can move my books to my property. That's partly why I wanted to know if she had sorted the other books for me. I'd rather move them all in one go and avoid seeing Brian. Commenter 5. NTA, obviously. But I think we all want to hear some backstory about how a teenager acquired a 7-figure book portfolio. Assuming we're not talking Pakistani rupees or something. OP. I think I mentioned above mostly inheritance. I added to my collection over the years. I wasn't a teenager when I inherited them. I was a child. Due to me being a child, Jen had physical care of them, but I was allowed to see them at any time, and she respected my wishes when it came to them. When I got my first job at 16, I had them valued by an appraiser. The value of books, especially the kind I have, appreciates over time. I'm from the UK GBP. Commenter 6. NTA. But you were incredibly foolish to leave the books there. Commenter 7. She could not take care of them where she was moving. She had no reason to believe her mother would not care for them. Apparently Brian had not shown that he would steal her property. Commenter 6. She wrote that Brian abused her all throughout childhood and her mother let it happen. Of course, she should not have trusted them. OP. I didn't trust Brian. I trusted Jen. She had never withheld any of my books from me. If I asked for any, she would hand them over to me immediately. The family home has the appropriate storage for them. Jen was a failure of a parent in so many other ways, but when it came to my books, she wouldn't dare. Brian wanted to store some of his collection with mine, but Jen refused because she didn't want him having access to them. She was aware that he would try to pressure me to sell him some of my books, and this is one of the few things she did speak up about. Even yesterday, she was saying that she did not buy them, and that they are mine, but she will not stand up to Brian, who is claiming ownership of them. That is the issue. If she fails to do that, then she is as guilty as he is. Update. I am sorry for leaving things so long. I was busy with the situation and then traveling, and I thought it would be best to leave things until it was fully resolved. It has been a little over 2 weeks, but it has felt like an eternity. I'll start off by saying there is good news and bad news. The good news. I got my books back, all of them. Unscathed. They are physically in my possession and will remain in my care indefinitely. The bad news. I did not take Jen and Brian to the cleaners. Ultimately, my goal was to get my books back, no matter the route I had to take to do so. I'm sure you'll mostly agree that it was a good outcome either way, even if I am not suing my parents. I'll keep the rest of this as brief as possible. After speaking with Tom, I had already contacted my lawyer to set things in motion. They had advised that they would contact Jen and Brian as a matter of urgency. Not long after speaking with me, Jen had contacted Ruth to try and convince her to get me to speak with her. It was only going to be her attempt to get me to back down. I do not bluff. She knows this. Ruth said she told Jen that she hopes I do follow through with things, and then she ended the call. Jen tried to call back. Ruth ignored her. Then it was Tom's turn. Jen tried to get Tom to talk to me and Ruth. Jen was still in agreement that my books were mine, but Brian still was not having any of it, and Jen was not putting him in his place. Tom said he agreed with what I was doing. I was told that Brian was shouting obscenities about me in the background. Things like, ungrateful BTCH. You get the picture. Tom told me they deserve it, and so much more. My lawyer had contacted them on my behalf 2 days later. All contact with me was to go through the firm from then on. This is what Jen told me happened after they were contacted, as I was packing up. It was a one-sided discussion. She told Brian that he needed to stop trying to claim my books. If he was intent on keeping them, he needed to make me an offer of their current value plus 30%. But if I said no, it means no. How honorable of her. Brian was still adamant. He didn't need to offer me anything because the books already belonged to them, and I won't be getting anything. He also did not seem to think that I would win a legal battle against them, despite Jen confirming I had everything that meant they were guaranteed to lose. A couple more days later, my lawyer said that Jen reached out to them on her own and said that she wanted me to retrieve all of my books. I had already made them aware that Brian was an issue because of his presence at the family home, but she assured them that he would be gone for the whole day out of our city. Some days ago, I arranged for suitable transportation for the books to my house. A few days ago, I went to collect the books. When I got to the family home, Brian's car was not in the garage or front patio, which they always are whenever he is home, so I proceeded into the house. I know he would have tried to provoke me, even though I am not a violent person, because he wants to have a way to make me squirm. I walked right past Jen and went to where the books were. Brian has never been granted access by Jen, so they were perfectly secure, and I loaded them all into the van. It took a while. Brian won't notice they're gone, because he has never been able to get into that room, and Jen probably won't say anything. Even if she does, neither of them knows my address. Jen was talking to me throughout, trying to get me to sit with her to speak like adults. She was saying cliché things like she regrets how she treated me and blah, blah, blah. If she had said all of this years ago, maybe I would have listened. But even now I had to retrieve my own possessions in secret, because she couldn't stand up for me as she should have. Words are empty. I did not say a word the entire time. My lawyer said everything that needed to be said, including that as long as Jen and Brian do not try to falsely make a claim to my books, the matter is resolved once they are returned to my custody. Once I finished loading everything, I returned my keys to the family home. Jen tried to convince me to keep them, but I have no intent of returning there. The truth is that place stopped being the family home the day Brian moved in. I have zero happy memories of it. My old room makes me sad to think about, because it is a constant reminder that it was the only place I was permitted to be. Even writing this hurts. I needed my parent to look out for me. She failed in all other aspects apart from these books. I wish Jen had loved me like a parent should. But yes, I have my books back. That's a good outcome. Thank you for the earlier support on the previous post. That is all from me. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. That's a good update, OP. Your family is your siblings. I kinda feel bad for Jen, because she will soon find out she's alone in the world, the moment she realizes what kind of scum Brian is. But just a wee little bit bad. OP. She and Brian have their own child now. They got their wish, and I hope it was worth it. Commenter 2. NTA. Glad you got your books. I imagine Brian has browbeaten your mother into adding him to the deed and leaving him everything if she passes first. I hope she realizes if she becomes ill and needs care, he won't do it, and I hope you won't either. OP. Even if she does, she was never really my parent. They have their own child now. Brian made it clear that we would not get anything from him once he dies, not that we expected or wanted anything. He would say, "My children will get everything I have. You are not my children. Your mother will probably leave you something, but she will need to provide for our children first." Such a lovely man. Jen once told me that she wouldn't add their biological children to her will because Brian will leave them everything he has. Either way it goes, I will be okay. OP on the descriptions of her books. OP. I have a mixed collection. First edition books and rare and valuable comics make up the majority. Commenter 3. What happened with your sister's books? Were they indeed gone? Is she going to sue them? Would she have the same proof that you have? How did your mother keep the books away from him for all this time? OP. Ruth mentioned selling some to Jen and Brian years ago, maybe 10 now. She didn't want to sell them, but she needed the money to move out. The only way Brian was going to allow Jen to give it to her was in exchange for some books. If I had known at the time, I would have given her the money myself. I found out years later. There are boxes of books that belong to Ruth still in the room. She said she will keep them there for now. I will help her to move them when the time comes. The ones Jen and Brian bought were removed long ago to his own storage. It is a little difficult to explain how the room is, But the door is a heavyweight security door. It has a smart lock, and Brian never got access to it. Imagine a more regular-looking safe room. I think that is the easiest way to explain it. Entering the room triggers the security system like going home and having to put the alarm code in. Jen never needed to use this room once we got older, so Ruth and I were permitted to change the code. This ensures that Brian could never enter without us knowing, even if Jen betrayed us by giving him the code to the door, which she never has. Jen upgraded the security after Brian moved in. It is, in essence, a multi-purpose panic room. I'm sorry, I don't know how to explain it any better. I hope it is clear. Commenter 4. I'm glad you got your books back. And have you ever thought of going to either therapy or some form of counseling? Just someone to talk to about your parents' neglect. OP Jen put me in therapy when I was a teenager. And I still do sessions now. Seeing her face as I left made me feel empty. She looked sad, but I felt mostly nothing. Now I feel something. I will request some sessions with my therapist. Closure is best. Thank you. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.